Well, recently, there's been a ton of updates around the ongoing Microsoft and Activision Blizzard merger, as it is coming up to the estimated close date from Microsoft, where they expect this thing to be wrapped up and officially signed and done by mid-June 2023. And while we don't know if that's the date when a final decision will be made or not, there are some very interesting developments that continue to emerge following the official confirmation from Microsoft recently, where they went into a binding legal 10-year agreement with Nintendo around bringing Call of Duty to Nintendo Switch for the next 10 years. And the first question on many gamers' minds was, how is that going to happen? Will it be a cloud port? No way the Switch can run Call of Duty today as it runs currently on the other platforms. So maybe they're just talking about next-gen hardware. And in today's video, we have to break down all of the latest updates around this and some official comments from Microsoft themselves, and have a broader conversation on what this really means if this deal ultimately does go through for Nintendo Switch gamers, and what kind of Xbox games we may be able to expect to make it over to the current Switch hardware and next-gen hardware right now. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below. Hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today. Make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. And as I mentioned, guys, today we are discussing all things with the ongoing Microsoft acquiring Activision Blizzard situation, as this has been a rocky road for Microsoft. Sony's definitely fighting them tooth and nail, doing everything they can to make it look like they will go out of business if this merger goes through. There are even comments and updates around the story around Jim Ryan flat out saying that he doesn't care about any kind of Call of Duty deal from Xbox. He doesn't want a new Call of Duty deal from Xbox. He just wants to block this merger. And clearly that is exactly what Sony is trying to do, making regulators essentially see this as quote unquote anti-competitive if it does go through, just due to the big disadvantage it will put Sony at. What is interesting about Nintendo and Microsoft's relationship is it is very different than Sony and Microsoft. Phil Spencer in the past has directly quoted that if anything were to ever happen to Nintendo, that would mean the end for them, that somebody, including them, would need to step in to make sure they were always around, just because of how crucial they are for what they do in gaming. And to be fair, Nintendo does have its own style of the gamer that it targets with its gameplay experiences, and they are definitely moving that forward with the hybrid form factor that we have with the Switch today. But that's also creating an interesting conversation to be had if we do indeed get more powerful hardware that can run some of these mainline AAA games on handheld mode, meaning you can take it on the go anywhere. We don't know how powerful the next gen Switch will be, but one big question following, of course, the legal binding agreement from Nintendo and Microsoft around having support for Call of Duty on the Switch, or rather saying Nintendo platforms for the next 10 years, was, are they talking about cloud ports? Could this be what they are suggesting? Because clearly something like Call of Duty Warzone can't just easily run on Switch, and that is where the first update comes into play from Microsoft, because they've made a direct statement about this now, and I really think it paints an interesting picture for the future of Xbox games in general making their way to Nintendo platforms due to their partnership that they have had so far together. If this thing does go through, just look around. Microsoft was one of the holders for GoldenEye and Banjo-Kazooie. We have both of those games playable on NSO. Even at the end of the trailers from Nintendo themselves, you can see at the bottom of the credits that Microsoft is credited in some of those rights. They actually do own Rare, which retain the rights to those games, and they have successfully worked together on signing deals together, and now they're on board with releasing Call of Duty for the next 10 years on Nintendo platforms, which is a huge win for Nintendo gamers at the end of the day. But to first get on the same page with where Microsoft's head is at in terms of the current Nintendo Switch support, and whether or not we should be able to expect a game like Call of Duty Warzone to be released on the current Switch hardware that we have today, let's quickly hop over to VGC and read through their detailed typed up article together. Microsoft claims it can get Call of Duty Warzone and Modern Warfare 2 running natively on Switch. Microsoft cites Apex Legends and Fortnite as examples of similar titles running on the system. Last month, Microsoft signed a binding 10-year legal agreement to bring Call of Duty to Nintendo platforms, including full feature and content parity with Xbox. This led many to speculate how the company would implement the titles on the aging Switch hardware, especially considering that to date, no Call of Duty game has been released for it. It's been suggested that cloud streaming could be a solution, or maybe maybe the deal was in relation to the Switch's successor. However, in a newly published response to the UK regulator's remedies notice, Microsoft claims it's confident it will be able to make games like Modern Warfare 2 run natively on the platform. Microsoft claims because Warzone supports PC hardware with GPU cards that were released as far back as 2015, there's no reason it couldn't optimize the 200-player Battle Royale work on Nintendo Switch. The Activision development team has a long history of game performance for available hardware capabilities, it wrote. Microsoft goes on to claim that since the game engine that powers Warzone is mature and has been optimized to run on a wide range of hardware devices ranging from the Xbox One console released in 2015 up to the Xbox Series X, it could be altered to run on Nintendo Switch, which was released in 2017. However, this was a clear error since the original Xbox One was released in 2013, not 2015, arguably strengthening Microsoft's point. Microsoft then cites Apex Legends, Doom Eternal, Fortnite, and Crysis 3 as similar titles that have been successfully ported to Switch using standard techniques. It wrote, the parties are confident that in addition to Warzone, Call of Duty buy-to-play titles, example Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, can be optimized to run on the Nintendo Switch in a timely manner using standard techniques which have been used to bring games such as Apex Legends, Doom Eternal, Fortnite, and Crysis to the Switch. Now, the reason I find this update around this entire conversation to be very substantial for us Switch gamers is where we should be putting our expectations in terms of Nintendo Switch games partnering with Xbox in a bigger way. Yes, Call of Duty is the only title in question here that is being talked about due to the merger proceedings, but it is something that if Microsoft is truly committed to making a game like Warzone 2 or Modern Warfare 2 fully runnable and playable at a native level on the Switch, we are not talking about the lazy cloud option that we've seen numerous developers opt for as opposed to porting over games natively. Look at the Kingdom Hearts collection on the Switch. That is a perfect franchise that belongs on Nintendo hardware and that you should be happy to boot up and play, but Square Enix chose to go the route of cloud-only releases, even for all three games. Instead of putting the work into Kingdom Hearts 3 to make it run, they assumed, let's just release 1.5 and 2.5, even though they could clearly run on the Switch just fine. Just do it all in the cloud. It's a lot less development dollars, and we may not get our return on investment, and that's how they release those games. We are not going to be in that scenario with Call of Duty on the Switch, and I personally believe that as Nintendo and Microsoft start to see success, mutual success at that, where a large percentage of the Nintendo Switch player base now has the option to play Call of Duty on the go. If you're at home and it's docked and you own a different console, you might assume play it on there, but when it comes down to people traveling and wanting to have access to hop into some Warzone Battle Royale matches with your friends, it's one of those things that's going to be a very attractive option to the mainstream for the Switch. And I think the biggest win is that as Microsoft and Nintendo are making money from releasing games together, we may indeed see a broader library of Xbox first-party titles make it to Nintendo Switch over the course of time. Do I ever see them putting Game Pass on the Switch? Not necessarily, as that would definitely be an attractive option for us Switch gamers. I do think that that could potentially be viewed as a threat from Nintendo in terms of having something like so many games to play, 180 or whatever it is plus as soon as you subscribe, and that might motivate a lot of brand new Switch gamers to just go sign up for Game Pass and not look into the eShop as far in terms of buying all the first party Nintendo titles day one. So I don't necessarily think we're going to get an all-out cooperation between Microsoft and Nintendo where Game Pass is on our Switches as an option, but I do definitely think that one-off titles will be brought over and will be sold on the Switch. And if you have one of the biggest developers like Infinity Ward or that mysterious branch that may actually already be developing for the Nintendo Switch that was recently opened up near Retro Studios and has 5 Nintendo alumni working there, we could very well see support for major Xbox franchises going forward, especially when you talk about the next generation hardware. I definitely feel like that will be the strong time for Nintendo and Microsoft, because yes, on the Switch today, you have to jump through different development tactics and hoops to actually get the thing to run at a reasonable frame rate or resolution. But if the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever is next for Nintendo does indeed retain that hybrid form factor, but packs a much more powerful punch when it comes to GPU performance, I think we are then in a perfect scenario to see broad support with many new and ongoing games brought back. And hopefully, if the merger is approved, we get some long forgotten franchises. I'm ready to play a Guitar Hero game again in 2023. It's literally like, I grew up as one of my favorite franchises of all time, put countless hours into it, and it's just gone. Now, granted, they kind of killed it by over milking the franchise when it was here, but I think it's time to give it another shot. Phil Spencer has said that games like that, he would entertain the idea if this merger does go through and would like to see them brought back, in addition to Tony Hawk. That's another franchise that actually had Tony Hawk's 3+4 remaster in the works and then apparently just totally got scrapped because the team that was developing that got completely dissolved into a Call of Duty support team. Microsoft can definitely give the type of dollars to different branches of Activision Blizzard to bring back some classic franchises, and them being on good terms with Nintendo, how we find them today, I personally just feel like will be a win for us Switch gamers at the end of the day. Of course, this all still has to go through and be finalized, and there is still that possibility that this thing does get blocked altogether from regulators. I definitely don't think we have to wait too much longer to hear about initial approvals from one regulator, and then hopefully that will start to topple the dominoes over and everybody will approve the deal by the middle of 2023. But I really want to hear from you guys on this particular story, how you feel about the prospect of Call of Duty running natively on Switch hardware today. Which other Microsoft or Activision Blizzard franchises or IP that they own would you like to see brought back? Do you think that this partnership will indeed lead to way more Xbox games coming over on the Switch? Do you even think there is a world or a possibility where Game Pass comes to the Nintendo Switch one day? I don't see that happening, but I'd love to hear if you do. And when do you personally think we will ultimately get the official confirmation one way or another on this merger status with Microsoft and Activision Blizzard? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around this topic. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, which is on screen right now. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.